It's the most iconic tarot deck in the world. The first one most readers learn with. The one everyone recommends. But here's the problem. The Rider-Waite deck is overrated. And not for the reasons you might think. Today, I'm going to show you why the Rider-Waite Smith deck has dominated the tarot world for all the wrong reasons. Why its symbolism is often misunderstood, misused, and misrepresented, and how breaking free from its grip can actually make you a better reader. Hi, I'm Paul, and this is Tarot Logic, an analytical approach to intuitive reading. Let's start with the illusion. The Rider-Waite Smith deck is often called the classic tarot, but classic doesn't mean accurate, it means dominant. It became the default not because it was superior, but because it was marketed that way. It was cheap to print, easy to teach with, and mass-produced at the exact moment the occult revival hit the mainstream. But here's the catch. Its dominance created the illusion that it represents true tarot tradition. It doesn't. It represents a very specific worldview, filtered through the minds of two people with conflicting intentions. Most people think of it as the Rider-Waite deck, but that's already a red flag. Rider was the publisher, Waite was the occultist, and Smith, Pamela Coleman Smith, was the artist who brought it all to life. Smith was the visionary. She embedded her own mystical insight, theatrical flair, and intuitive symbolism. But Arthur Edward Waite, he edited, controlled, and at times contradicted the deeper esoteric traditions. He stripped out overt references to the Kabbalah. He reinterpreted certain cards to reflect his personal Christian mysticism. In other words, this classic deck was already compromised before it hit print. The illustrations on the Rider-Waite Smith deck are beautifully direct. And that's the problem. They're so literal, so narratively specific, that they often shut down deeper symbolical work. Instead of contemplating the energy of the Six of Swords, you just see a boat and think, moving on. Instead of exploring the inner transformation of death, you just see a skeleton on a horse. It spoon feeds you meanings. But tarot isn't meant to be spoon-fed. It's meant to provoke, not prescribe. That's why so many readers trained on Rider-Waite Smith struggle to move beyond surface-level interpretations. Let's talk about cultural coding. The Rider-Waite deck was created in Edwardian England by a white Christian mystic and a biracial woman whose mystical contributions were largely ignored for decades. The deck reflects the values of its time, a patriarchal hierarchy, a Eurocentric worldview, Christian esotericism layered over older traditions. Which means if you're reading from this deck without context, you're absorbing that bias into your interpretations. And unless you dig deeper, you're reinforcing those structures without realizing it. Here's the real danger. Rider-Waite makes you feel like you know tarot, when what you actually know is that deck. If you've memorized those images and attached static meanings to them, you've limited your reading capacity. Tarot isn't about pictorial shorthand. It's about archetypal language, energy, myth, shadow, structure. And most of that gets lost when you treat the Rider-Waite-Smith deck like the final word. So, should you ditch the Rider-Waite deck completely? Not necessarily, but you should stop treating it like scripture. Use other decks like the Thoth Tarot, the Marseille or symbolic decks rooted in Kabbalah and alchemy. Compare systems. Study the source material. Question every illustration. The more decks you explore, the more you'll realize Rider-Waite is just one lens, not the truth. Now, to be fair, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck does offer something important. It's approachable, it's visual, it invites intuition in a very accessible way, and for many people, it's their first love. But first loves are rarely forever. If you want to grow as a reader, if you want to tap into the deeper layers of the tarot, you have to move beyond it. Let it be a doorway, not a cage. The Rider-Waite deck isn't bad. It's just misunderstood, overused, and overhyped. It's one voice in a much larger choir. If you want to become the kind of reader who sees through the surface, who speaks the language of symbols, not just pictures, you have to go deeper. You have to read between the lines, and sometimes that means putting down the deck everyone else is using. If this gave you a new perspective on the Rider-Waite deck, subscribe to Tarot Logic for more myth-busting, truth-telling episodes. And comment below. What's a tarot deck that challenged your perspective or changed your practice completely? Until next time, read with clarity, read with structure, and always read with logic.